What are you watching, bro?
Oh, I'm watching Kilau.
Kilau?
Yeah, Kilau.
Who's that?
You don't know Kilau? Are you serious with me?
Yeah. Who is Kilau, bro?
Kilau is the great warrior all of the time in the Pahang.
So, does it? Oh, great warrior? Does it? No.
You don't know Kilau?
Yeah, you don't know, that's why I asked. Why he's the greatest
Kilau
warrior?
is the greatest warrior that saved the people in the late 1018. So, this is the greatest warrior. You need to watch this movie. Let's go.
For the strange, the movie take its story from the real life hero Mat Kilau, who is celebrated for his struggle against British colonial force. His legendary status promised a great story background. In one of the opening scenes, Mat Kilau is seen leading his comrades into a stirring speech to urge resistance against the British colonial force.
So, the one weakness is the dramatization of event. Some aspects of the story are exaggerated and it actually does not exist in the historical story. So, this involves exaggerated scenes, intense dialogues, and added conflict that may not have actually occurred. It is just an addition to the story to make the story more interesting for audience since it was a film.
So next we go to the internal criticism of Mat Kilau. Okay, the first one is historical inaccuracies. The film takes creative liberties in dispiriting events, simplifying complex struggles and relationship for dramatic event. Second, characters depth. Some characters, including Mat Kilau himself, are portrayed as overly heroic, breaking down in development.
For external criticism, some reviewers criticise the movie for not being to the story. They felt the movie took religious liberties with the event and character, which would mislead people about the true story of the Pahang arrest.
Eman.
What?
I want to ask something.
What?
How the technique to critique the source?
Oh, so we basically have three ways. We need to remember three C. The first C is the credibility, consistency, and corroborations.
So, the first way is credibility. This film is not a highly credible source for historical study because it lacks verifiable documentations, including dramatized events and reasons or one-side narrative. It also contains timeline inaccuracy and anachronism. This can be said like that because this film was an action drama film that's only focused on how Mat Kilau, a legendary Malay warrior, fight against the British colonial in Pahang. The film only function is to raise awareness of Malay resistance against colonialism. It should supplement with primary and secondary source for accurate historical study. For example, the elements of cross-checking with other historical resources to make this film become a credible historical source, it should be supported by multiple records. However, the film does not cite any historical documents, and its portrayal of events differs from verified accounts, particularly in battle strategy and character timelines. This makes the credibility of this film to become a historical evidence quite low due to inconsistency with historical record. So, the next one is consistency. Does the movie accurately depict Malay customs, clothing and language, and martial arts? The use of silat, Malay martial arts, is well researched and reflects traditional Malay combat style. The language and dialogue use classical Malay terms, adding authenticity. The costume, weapons, and setting accurately depict the late 19th century Malay world, but some elements may be slightly stylized for cinematic effect. Verdict: highly consistent in cultural representations, with minor stylistic choice for film period.
Corroboration. Does historical evidence support Mat Kilau's leadership in resisting British rule? Historical records confirm that Mat Kilau, along with his father Tok Gajah and Datuk Bahaman, led guerrilla resistance against the British in Pahang from 1891 to 1895. British colonial documents mention Malay uprising in Pahang, and oral tradition strongly support Mat Kilau's role as a resistance fighter. However, details of specific battle in the film, such as large-scale confrontation, are not fully documented in historical sources. Partly corroborated, Mat Kilau's leadership is real, but some battle scenes are dramatized. For example, we can take a look at the other source that I found and can be used for the corroboration, which is
So, the next one is anachronism. Anachronism occur when object, language, and clothing or behavior in a historical film do not match the time period being depicted. The anachronism that exists in this film makes this film become less authentic and accurate in representing on how the atmosphere at that time should be.
So guys, in my opinion, the reason for the event in Mat Kilau was the British came to Pahang and controlled the land. They made life difficult for the people by taking resource, collecting high tax and not respecting local tradition. Mat Kilau and his friend did not want to live under unfair rule, so they decided to fight back to protect their home and freedom. Second implication to local. This event is very important because it reminds Malaysia that their ancestors were brave and fought for their rights. It has no right. Malaysia might not have its much identity today. This story teach people to appreciate and respect their country history. Number 3. Other historical source. If you want to learn more about Mat Kilau, we can read history books, all newspaper and government records. Some museums in Malaysia also have information about him and his fight against the British. This source help us understand what really happened in the past. Number 4. Fun fact from the movie. One true fact from the movie is that Mat Kilau was a real person who led a rebellion against British in the late 1800s. He and his warriors used clever strategies to fight, even though they had fewer weapons. Number 5 and the last. Lesson from the event, the story of Mat Kilau teach us that we should always stand up for what we right, even when facing difficulties. It also demands us to be proud of our culture and history, and to protect our country from harm.
Jumpa keturunan kau lagi. Aku orang Melayu yang akan membela bangsaku. Do not stir the hornet's nest, lad. You have no idea who you're up against. Kau tak takut mati. Walau Israel datang sekalipun aku sedia menghadap. Ini kan pula penjajah laknat seperti kau. Siapa kamu? Islam agamaku. Melayu bangsaku. Takkan aku duduk berdiam melihat apa yang kau buat pada bangsaku. Keris yang menyilau. Aku dipanggil Mat Kilau. Jangan kau fikir kau ibarat Tuhan. Apa yang kau buat pada orang kami seperti pengemis di tanah sendiri. Masa kau dah sampai sultan.
In my opinion, the story is portrayed as a Malay leader who stood out for his race, nation, and religion, since the British went to exploit the local natural resources and impose high taxes on the local population, which is what caused the incident. Second, the rise of Malays in administration, whereby they are not trusting foreigners to take over the country again and defend their land rights due to British desire for Malay resources, show the implication for the history. Tok Gajah is one example of other historical sources that are relevant. He is Mat Kilau's father and he plays a crucial part in battling the British on huge scale. The two of them went to overrun the British through positioning in the Kuala Lumpur area.
Orang Melayu takkan kekal mulia dengan adat, kesultanan dan budaya semata-mata. Tapi kita akan kekal mulia kerana akidah jika berpegang teguh dengan Islam. Di situlah letaknya kemuliaan orang-orang Melayu yang sebenar.
The lesson we can learn from this story is where every struggle requires sacrifice, and sacrifice requires willingness. Mat Kilau had to leave the village, leave his family, the pleasure of fighting, which not many people are willing to do. The contribution of this warrior should not be forgotten, and instead should be held in high esteem and to be emulated by our people.
So, for my opinion, the reason that led to the event is because of British economic exploitations and oppressions. So, the British imposed high tax on land and trade, making life difficult for local Malays. They also took control of tin mines and fertile lands, prioritizing foreign business over local communities. In addition, they reduced the power of Malay rulers, which upset many people. This unfair policy led to widespread dissatisfactions, and Mat Kilau decided to fight back to protect his people and their way of life. So the next one is the implication of the event on local history. For me, it creates a symbol of nationalism and resistance. Mat Kilau rebellion became a symbol of Malay resistance against colonial rule. His bravery showed that the Malays were willing to fight for their land and freedom. This inspired future movement that eventually led to Malaysia independence in 1957. His story is still remembered today as an example of courage, unity and patriotism. The next one is the other historical source related to the movie. So I choose Hikayat Pahang. Hikayat Pahang is a historical resource related to the Mat Kilau. a book that records the history of Pahang, including its ruler and battles. It contains a series of Malay warriors who resist British rules, providing important background information on the struggle faced by Mat Kilau and his people. One story that can be found in Hikayat Pahang is the story of Battle of Treasure of Pahang. In Malay, we call it as Perang Bendahara Pahang. So the next one is about one example of a fact from the movie. So Mat Kilau was a real historical figure who fought against British rule. Mat Kilau was a real Malay warrior who led resistance against the British in Pahang in the 1890s. The British saw him as a threat because he encouraged the local people to fight for their freedom. So for years, many believed he had died, but in 1969, he revealed himself, proving that he had survived in hiding. And the last one is one lesson that can be learned from the event. We can learn unity and resistance against oppressions. Mat Kilau's story teaches us that unity and courage are powerful tools against oppressions. Even though the British had stronger weapons and more resources, Mat Kilau and his people stood together and resist. This lesson reminds us that no matter how powerful an enemy is, working together and standing up for what is right can bring change. So this is all from me. Thank you.
So, in my interpretation is the one reason for the Mat Kilau event was the British operation through the high taxes and land seizures, which harmed the Malay economy. So Mat Kilau rose to defend his homeland and sovereignty. So after that, the implication is the Mat Kilau event on the local history is inspire future resistance against the colonial rule. His bravery and struggle became a symbol of Malay nationalism, motivating later independence movement in Malaya. The uprising showed the local were willing to fight for their right and sovereignty, including the spirit of anti-colonialism that eventually led to the Malaysia's independence in 1957. I can say the historical sources in the Mat Kilau is the Hikayat Pahang, which is a historical manuscript that documents the history of Pahang, including the local resistance against British colonial rules. It provides insight into the struggle of Malay warrior like Mat Kilau and his fight for sovereignty. Okay, the fact that I learned in the Mat Kilau is the Mat Kilau led a guerrilla resistance against the British rule in Pahang. He, along with the Tok Gajah and other warrior, used the hit and run tactic to fight against the colonial forces, reflecting the real historical event of Malay resistance in the late 19th centuries. The lessons that I learned from the Mat Kilau movie is the courage and unity are essential in defending one's homelands. The film highlights the Mat Kilau and his warriors stood together against operations, showing the importance of bravery and solidarity in overcoming challenges.
In my opinion, the event was brought about by the introduction of British colonial rules and its subsequent reform. The British established various regulations that minimized the influence and income that hereditary Malay chiefs had. For instance, they were not allowed to collect toll and tax in their district. One major implication is the rise in the spirit of resistance and struggle against colonial rules. It also brought out the strength and resilience of the local community is resisting British colonial power, which has undermined the authority and income of the Malay chief. This helped shape the national identity and strength patriotism among the Malay people. Another source, we can look at journal UKM. One suspect in this movie is the Pahang RSC, in which the local Malay community under the leadership of Mat Kilau and his father Tok Gajah were against the British colonial force to defend their homeland. The lesson to be derived from this is courage and resilience against oppression. This film tells about the bravery of Mat Kilau and his friend who with all costs and decide survival and overwhelming obstacles facing them.